Okay, so we need to get in that space because I know you guys could talk for a day about this stuff.
We just did. I don't know if we can talk much longer.
You got us at the end of the day.
Right.
The camera may just have us going.
Yeah. So just to give you a picture first
Okay.
of where I'm going to go is just like what Common Ground was like beforehand.
Okay.
Why was there a need to change? You know, what Common Ground looks like now. What were some of the key elements to changing the organisation? You know, those types of things.
Okay.
And maybe a story of someone. So even if you could think about someone to give those examples, like when we're talking about what Common Ground was like before, if you want to use an example, like, well, Bob's life was like this, and then when we talk about,
Yeah, we're like that.
yeah. So, but it doesn't have to. I mean, we could, because we can edit, we can pull bits out and move them around too. So we can just do the story at the end if you want as well. So, yeah. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mark and Scott, for spending some time with us this afternoon. So you work for an organisation called Common Ground. Can you tell us a bit about Common Ground and, well, mainly where it's located?
It's in northern New Hampshire, far northeast United States.
About an hour from the Canadian border.
And we have, 3 different locations in that area. And it's a really rural area. There's more animals than people. So there's very few cars and people have to be transported around. And it's a beautiful area. Although 6 months of the year it's winter. It's very cold. So that is what the location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when originally did Common Ground begin? As an organisation?
It officially began as a program in 1994. But a lot of the philosophical values were being built in the late 80s. With the beginning was really when we looked at the group home and saw that the group home really wasn't making much sense for people. There were 8 people that lived in the institution, which was in our case Laconia State School, and they had to be placed back into the community because the institution was being shrunk down. And the way New Hampshire did it was if you were born in a particular area or region of the state, then you were to return to that area. So 8 people were selected and transitioned to this home from the institution. And one of the transitions that I remember really vividly was an individual was told that they were going for a ride in the country. But they were taken to the home in a green car and with all their belongings in garbage bags were dropped off by the social worker. He left the bags in the living room. He walked in the front of the building and walked out of the back and got in his car and left. And that was the transition. And the person was left there.
Wow.
And these people really didn't have a chance, they had no choice as to who their roommates were or their housemates. And these 8 people, many of them didn't like each other at the institution, and they didn't like each other at this home. And yet they were together 24 hours a day. And I had a chance to see that as a service coordinator or supervisor. And it was really odd because, in America, the successful marriage is really less than 50%. And we expected 8 people to get along that had difficulties communicating. So after a while, it was really evident that we had to do something about that. So that was even before Common Ground started.
That was like in the late 80s.
Late 80s, yeah.
And in the late 80s, in the day, for the daytime, these people would be all go into a van and be driven to a sheltered workshop. And the sheltered workshop consisted of a big room where there were a lot of machinery, and lots of jigs and lots of apparatus so that people could do pieces of industrial work from local companies that would be shipped in, and they would do some of the work there, and then it would be shipped out. At the end of the day, they all go in the van and they all go back to the group home. So the day, and at the time when I was there, there was no, the factory work there was less and less factory work. It was drying up, and so there really was not much work happening. So what would happen was we'd do simulated work, which was not pleasant.
It was just awful.
It was, yeah, just like there'd be like wooden pieces of wood with holes in them, and there'd be these pegs that we'd tell them to put the pegs in the holes, and then we'd take the filled pieces of wood and give them to the next person, say take the pegs out of the holes, and that was supposedly to hone your fine motor skills, so that you could do work when the work would eventually arrive, but it never eventually arrived.
Pre-vocational.
Pre-vocational and simulated work, and there was really no real work happening.
I remember Lou Brown saying, pre means never.
Pre-vocational is really no work, yeah. So that was happening
So that was,
in the late 80s.
yeah, it was all very hard to watch at the time.
At the time I was supposed to be trying to find work for people, and I was trying to find work in the community, but it was within a system and within skill sets of people that really didn't have the skills to look at the community and see opportunities and try to help opportunities happen for people, or even have the inclination that would be a good thing to do for people, to help them get into the community. So it was a frustrating time. So
And after we closed the group home, they went to kind of like host families or adult foster care families. There was a matching process of people that would get along, and they take them into their family, and it's kind of a certified situation, so that's very safe, but it was very individualized. So they get their identity back as far as in the home.
they're still going into the shelter.
They created another workshop in the southern part of our area. So then we had 2 workshops.
With 2 directors and 2 vocational coordinators and 2 rehabilitation coordinators and full-time staff in both places. And so the system was not at all able to respond to people's desires and needs to get out in the community at all.
And then there was we had an area director that had been there a long time, and he told me, you know, things aren't just going to change, Mark. But the thing that did change was he got promoted, and his wife came and took his place. And it did take someone with just a fresh, viewpoint of how things were being done to be able to make the major change that took place soon after that. And that's really important. I think it's really hard to change things when you have really strong relationships with your staff, and it's hard to let go of all those staff to do the right thing for the people we serve. And I think this was one of those rare things that happened where she came in, looked at things really objectively, and knew she had to do something. And she happened to do it. She made the announcement of this huge change on Christmas Eve.
Well, yeah, she went to a staff meeting, one of our Tempo workshop staff meetings, and there was the usual staff meeting agenda was to do with timesheets. So-and-so's timesheets getting in late and all these mundane things, and she was sitting there and she was planning to announce this new system in January of 1994, but she decided in December of 1993, and she'd said, in hindsight, she said later on that if anybody asked, she was going to tell them. So somebody in this Christmas Eve staff meeting asked, so I hear you have a new system you're going to put in place, and she said, yes, I am. We're going to have a lot of part-time people to work with people individually. Everything's going to be done in the community. People are going to be connected within their communities, and there'll be only 6 full-time people, and it's going to be great. And this person, being smart, said, does that mean we might lose our jobs? And Jane said, yes. Merry Christmas, everybody. So long. And she formally announced it in January, and then we started hiring. 3 of us kept kept the full-time positions from the old way, the old workshop, and all new people were hired.
So how did the staff take that? Like, did they take that badly, or did they take
Some
it
people
positively?
took it quite badly.
Yeah, it obviously created a negative culture, and somewhat
A
cancerous
short time.
for those 3 months. But it happened fairly quickly because the announcement came out in January, and then All the staff had the opportunity to go for those new positions, but as Scott said, most of them did not get it. Because it was a different skill set, because you went from, the day and work in the sheltered workshop, which is very different than trying to be a community connector. So most of them, like he said, did not get their position.
There were two direct service staff that made the transition, and they ended fairly quickly once we started there. It was very evident that it wasn't going to work.
So what were some of the skills or values that you were looking for in people that you were employing?
The skills?
Yeah, well, one thing, we weren't looking for well-trained staff. I mean, we were looking for people that already kind of had that internalized respect for people as equals, all people. And because that you can't teach.
It's hard to
people
train.
either have it or they don't. And we learned over time, you just got to hire the right people, and then we will work with them to train them any kind of skills, or work with them as far as getting to know people. But the right people really were people that were going to come alongside people and assist them and not take care of them, which was a different mindset than there was previous. So the interviews, we did like 60 interviews in 1 month, and ended up hiring, all new staff to take over for the old staff. What was it, March 29th?
Well, it was April 1st. April 1st was the end of Tempo Workshop.
Yeah, the end of it.
And then there was the weekend, and then April 4th we started Common Ground.
With new staff. And then, not to say that it was perfect by any means. Some matches we were wrong, and staff left within the first week. But the new way of delivering services in the community took over in 1994. And it was incredibly exciting and chaotic, because serving people in an individualized way is much more difficult, because things change every day and you got to respond to the changes, and people have different schedules. It is a lot easier to provide services in groups and containment. It is easier, but the quality of life is dramatically different.
Yeah, if you look at how as for me, it's like if you look at how you're providing services and you think about that person that's receiving them, and think of it 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and think about what your service provides, and think about where their life would be. That's sort of an indicator of how your services are provided, right? Because if you provide services by teaching skills within 4 walls, and you think about that person's life 5 years down the road, where is it? It's in the same 4 walls. Yeah. The exciting thing about what we do now is you think about how we provide services, and you think about the person's life 5 years down the road, and there's no telling where they're going to be, right? They could be doing any number of things, and their lives could be going in any different directions, and that, I think, is exciting.
Right.
It's also very chaotic. Yeah. Within what we do now is, each person's life is very complicated, because they're out in the community. They've got commitments, they've got relationships, they've got ideas that they want to do, they've got mistakes they need to correct because they've done a lot of different things, and everybody's life is chaotic. And within our office, there's 20, 30 people that have complicated lives, and we need to support each one of those. So it's very chaotic.
You need to have a structure and a system that's able to do that.
Allows that to happen.
A lot of systems cannot do that because of the way they're arranged. So our system is very, very flat, and we give authority to people so that they can respond to people, and they don't have to go up a chain of command. So that it's a very flat structure with authority given to the people on the ground, so that people can assist people right there in the moment, and not call 5 different people.
So one of the difficulties that's going through my mind is how then do you arrange the funding? Is it not cheaper to support people in groups rather than individually?
Funding, that's more.
Yeah, that's probably true. It is, in the beginning, one of the arguments for individualized supports or personalized supports was that it was going to be less expensive. In the end, it really hasn't been, because of what you said. The grouping, if you do group and contain, you can have one staff for 6 or 7 people. and it is less expensive.
Yeah, but, but then again, I mean, I think of someone on my team who...
Scott, I'm talking about the money now.
I'm sorry, no, this is money. This is about money. But I mean, think about, you know, the medical issues that people have. I mean, that people used to have, and then now they're medically are healthier people. So if you look at money all around,
the big picture, you're right.
They're
much more
you're
active.
seeing people that are they're healthy, productive
That's
people
true.
in their communities.
Yeah, we assisted a
Funding
person to
wise.
move out of a nursing home, and she
Exactly.
had all kinds of
Right.
what is it, celiac? You got what is it?
I don't know what you have.
She had constant infections of some sort. I forget what they were called. But
It's a woman thing.
yeah, I don't know what kind of infection. But she had these infections, and then we assisted her move into a home, and she's up and about and doing things, and those
There's a bunch
medical
of folks
issues
like
have gone away. So the cost of the system as far as medical issues definitely has dramatically been reduced.
Oh, yeah.
But as far as staffing, when I was originally answering this question, the grouping thing, yeah, it can be much more cost effective. And that there's always that kind of a call for that, you know, every now and then.
Well, you have to be
legislators and government want to go back to that. And so we have to constantly be involved with influencing people of power and keeping them on our side and showing the quality of life issues are more important than some of the costs.
So did you get more funding to do personalised support?
I don't know if we get any more funding. I mean, I think there's more, you know, over the years, because we now, Common Ground's been doing this for 19 years. I think there is a little more of a tendency to give us a little extra money because of our reputation. You know, we have a really good relationship with our government body in New Hampshire, and I won't say that, you know, we get a lot extra, but you know what I mean. There's a little more trust in what we do, and you know, we've been doing it a long time. And the budgets that we propose, because each person has an individualized budget, and so in that plan it says what we're going to do. So it's very personalized and individualized, and they ask us a lot of questions, and we answer those questions.
So who has control over that money, the individual's money funding?
It's, you know, the individual and the family and whoever represents that individual. But in New Hampshire, we pretty much don't talk about the money so much as we do about the supports and services. Sometimes money clouds things for people, and I'm about to lose my voice. Excuse me.
You're so emotional about money, Mark. It's amazing. But getting back to...
No, I'm not done yet.
But no, I'm just going back to you. If you think about, but you talked about, you know, we have a good reputation, so the state, you know, gives more money, but also I think we're very, very transparent about how we provide services.
Yeah.
So that's the trust piece, right? That they're always, you know, we invite folks to come in and take a look and really analyze how we provide the supports and how the sports are provided on the ground, how we actually do it, as opposed to looking at paperwork. Because paperwork can be very nice, but in the services themselves can be pretty bad.
Right.
So we have people that, you know, we welcome people to see what we do, offer opinions on how we provide it. So we're very transparent. Because I personally think any system that supports someone, if they're at all secretive or their walls are, you know, segregated, it's a dangerous place for people to receive those services, no matter what they are. I think they need to be transparent and open. So
Yeah, we show all of our warts. And,
so they know if we make a mistake, we're the first to tell them before they find it.
Yeah.
So I think that goes a long way as well.
Why I'm trying to concentrate on the money piece is lots of people use that as an excuse not to transform their service, saying like it's not cost effective. How can we provide individualised supports based on, you know, group funding where it provides 30 hours a week, and the package, if you're going to give one-to-one support, is going to, you know, maybe provide 7 or 8 hours a week.
Right. Yeah, we heard that. Yeah. I don't know what to say. I'm not the money person.
Oh, you interrupted me before.
Oh, no, sorry. You can interrupt me later when I'm talking about something else.
I mean, for some, you know, some individuals, we go into it with, you know, there isn't much support. And by being inventive, kind of, we fade out of situations. Like in the beginning of Common Ground, there were no job coaches. We had no staffing for assisting people in employment. So what we did was just go right to the employer and say, you're gonna have to hire and assist this person in the workplace
So they know the
because
job
we don't
the
have
best.
anybody, and they know the job the best, and it's just natural, and that's the way it should be. So by not having money actually made us come up with very creative ideas on just how to assist people. And we've done that also in assisting people live in apartments and just being, getting other people involved around the person to kind of fill that void. Because there is a difference as far as eyes-on paid support, but other people can do that. So we have learned that. So that's one way to assist people. But
Yeah, I have one person on my team that we check in on in the morning. He lives on his own, and they just check to make sure, because he needs just a little bit of assistance with his apartment. He needs a little bit of assistance for himself. He has a 40-hour-a-week job, and we want to make sure he's presentable when he goes to work. And he joined, I don't know if you have this here, Elks Club. It's some fraternal club, and he joined that. And now he volunteers down there all the time. I'm not really sure what he does. He volunteers down there all the time, and he offers that they have a big hall, and he offers that hall to our agency if we need a big venue for something now. And if we don't take him up on it, he gets upset. He goes, "You're using my hall. I want you to use my hall for."
yeah, he does.
And then really the amount of support we provide him is just what he needs, not more than what he needs, but just what he needs.
Yeah.
So it works really well.
So what about people with complex disabilities and complex support needs?
Yeah, as you asked the last question, I kind of forget about where people were when we started with them and where they are now. Because our stories, because they're each individual stories. We move from one to the next. I often forget about how someone that came to us with fairly complex needs, and now they are not at that same place. They've really matured and just become kind of just a regular person to us. It's so funny to see things over time. So we do. Where was I going? Sorry.
It's people with complex needs.
Yeah.
To do with people with complex needs. I mean, that's one of the things I was talking about. Is this? There's one woman on my team that has very, very complex medical needs, physical needs, emotional needs, and she lives in her home, and we have someone that supports her there. And at one time, well, there's many stories about her, but at one time she needed a feeding tube, and the medical, she went to the hospital, and the medical people put the feeding tube in, and she was having all kinds of infections and things all the time, and but because the person cared about her, it was a relationship thing. This home provider and her, they trusted each other, and they worked together, and they ended up going to the hospital later, and the doctor said, I think we can take this feeding tube out. This rarely ever happens, but we're going to be able to take this. And she hasn't been in the hospital in 4 years now, whereas she used to go in every few months. But it's just a magic.
Her own home.
And she owns her own home. Yeah, she owns her home, and our person supports her in her home. She lives there and supports her in her home. And it's been a great situation.
We found that if a person is in the wrong environment, they appear to have complex needs because they're telling us they're behaving loudly, they're behaving loudly, and so one would say they have very complex needs, but we're just not listening. So we have learned to listen and go, they're telling us this is not the right environment for them. Let's assist them to find an environment that matches what they want. And once we find the match, those so-called complex needs fade away, and that's why we forget about them. That's why I kind of went blank. Because I don't think of people that did have complex needs, and now they don't. Because they dissipate as the person finds contentment and they have a life and they're contributing back to society. their whole life changes. So they go from complex to, oh, that's just Larry, you know, and I don't think about it anymore. So
Yeah.
it is a radical change when you see someone in the wrong environment, and then when you assist them to the right environment. It's dramatic.
Yeah.
There is a guy named Larry, and that's why I mentioned him, that when I first met him, he was in a kind of facility, educational facility, but it was still a facility. And at the time, he was hitting himself in the face and the knee to his head. And it would make a very jolting sound. And when he would eat, they put this plastic garment on themselves and on him, and the food would just be everywhere. And it looked like some situation you'd see in a science fiction movie. And I remember saying that, you know, I don't know if I can ever serve this guy. I thought, you know, I don't know how to serve him. And when he turns 21, what are we going to do? I said, I might have to resign because I don't know what to do. And I'm pretty idealistic. But sure enough, he did turn 21, and we did assist him to find a home that would match his needs. The first one didn't work out quite as well, and then we tried another one to find another match. And then I think it was the third one that we found was the perfect match for him. And we saw him calm down, no more behavior plan, he doesn't hit himself, and we found him the right day match too, an individual that was like kind of an invisible support because they looked like two guys in the community. They acted very similar, and we also checked him out medically to make sure that there wasn't any issue. And there was an issue about his eye, and I don't know if it was ever checked out. He had his eye removed, and we don't know to this day, and we won't know, whether or not the knee to head and all that caused it, or was he telling us he was in pain back when he was doing that. So we will never know what caused it. But now when you see this gentleman, he has a lot of sensory needs, and sometimes he'll fall on the carpet and lie down on the carpet. And instead of telling him, no, that's inappropriate, we just allow that to happen, and then he gets up and he does his thing with us. And he has a sense of humor, like a Three Stooges sense of humor, and he loves to see things bang, he loves to see people fall down.
Fall.
But he's become himself, and now you see him like at Scott's office, and he just sits there very contented, and he does a mail route, and he does a few things where he delivers mail, and just totally different person. You'd never know.
So how's he supported to live in it's his own home, it's not a group home? So how can you just sort of like make that a bit clearer?
Yeah, he lives with a home provider.
What do you mean by a home provider?
It's a family home. So we contract with this family, and this family supports him, and he lives and shares their life in the home. And so they have a contract. We have a contract with this woman that provides the supports for him, and she takes care of his kind of his needs in the house. And if he needs to go home during the day, he can go home.
Anytime.
It's like his home and her home sharing. It's like a shared home. And they go on vacations together. They go all over the place. And it's such a, he goes snowmobiling, and he does all the things everyone else does with the family. So it's a part of the family. And some people don't necessarily want that kind of involvement. And so there are home sharers that, where the person just has a room and comes and goes as he pleases, and they sort of share the house. And where others want to feel like they're a part of the family, and they do become a part of the family, and it's just an extended part of the family. So it's based on the individual.
So do you support any people to live in their own home? Or
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Live in their own home? Yeah, I mean, that's the woman that I was talking about. She owns her own home, and someone lives there with her and helps support her. And she has, like I said, many physical needs, and so the relationship's great. At one time, we tried to staff it with different staff because she needed 24-hour care, and it didn't fit her, didn't fit this person at all, and each person had their own unique take on what they thought she needed. And this one person who was a staff, the relationship just clicked really well. They got along really, really well, and we got rid of the staff, and this one person moved in with her, and it's been an amazing, amazing thing. Like I said, both medically and
Quality of life.
her quality of life, and the people that, and with her and with this person's family, really reconnected with her. That didn't happen before, because before it was sort of imposing. You had the staff that was in the home, different staff, and they all had a different take on this person's family and what should happen and what they're about. And this one person who's now the home provider, who supports her in her home, encourages the relationship to happen. They visit the family all the time. They go to all the weddings. They go to the funerals. They go to this person's families, which she never had the opportunity to do before. So she's really connecting with her family, with her sisters, brothers, cousins, that she didn't before. And she also is getting to know and becoming very close with this home provider's families, sisters, brothers, cousins. And so her world is opening up, and
And she's a part of the community.
Total part of the
I
community.
hate to admit this, but I was a part of a square dancing group, and she was part of that. What you do for love. And so she was.
His wife wanted him to go to the square dancing. I wished I could see that.
My wife is his sister. You should know that.
What do you think attracts people to be, like, come and share life with people, be home providers? Well, what do they get out of it, do you think?
What we found is a lot of the people like to stay home. That's part of their makeup. And
they're very giving and willing to...
selfless. They want to give, and this is a way to give.
Also, you open up your home to scrutiny, because the state needs to certify the home, so the state comes in once a year and looks through the home and sees what it's like. Plus, in the contract they say that we as the agency can drop in at any time as well.
Right.
So the people are very caring. I mean, on the whole, they're very caring, very nurturing people, and willing to, and like to stay home themselves. Don't want to get out and do work during the day. They'd like to be home, and
it's going to be the right match. It has to be the right match, or else it won't work.
It does, yeah.
And not all of our matches have worked perfectly by any means. So it is trying to find, and with the individuals, if they're looking for a place, they visit a number of places, and then we try to take pictures of the places that they were at, so they can choose which one was the best match for them. Because in all the work that we do, I think that's the most critical piece, is the match. For staff, for work, for service coordination, for whatever it is. If it's the right match, things work really well. And if it's not, people will let us know.
How do you find home providers?
Home providers?
That's a good question.
It gets hard.
That
It's
is a
hard
good
after a
question.
while.
In the beginning, it was easier to find a good home provider. But, we live in a small community, and the way that we have found the most effective is a current home provider knows someone else. And then they can really explain what it's like, and they share that experience with someone else, and then that person calls us. And then those are the most effective ways. The newspaper ads, you screen through some really odd people that they're in it for the wrong reasons, they're in it for money or whatever, but those people are not the right ones. Or they just want to take care of people,
Didn't you have a job fair recently, or an open house thing to try to get home providers? And
we
had one person showed up.
So if there's any other effective way, we'd like to know. We're not doing so well right now.
So the home providers, how are they reimbursed for their...
It's a contractual relationship, so they sign a contract once a year to provide whatever supports are outlined in a person's service agreement. So, and it's based on kind of the amount of assistance they need. So we kind of have to judge that, and then provide a fair amount of money to support them in that way.
So How would you say that compares with the cost of, congregate care living, those types of arrangements?
We've found that is more cost effective.
Cost effective, yeah.
And governmental agencies really like it if you're speaking their language, in that it's a fixed cost. There's no overtime for staff. It is, you have in a contract and this is how much it's going to be for the year. So that, you can provide very personalized and individualized supports for someone, and there is a really good support network for that person. And you don't have to have all of these staff with benefits.
So now just going back, so if you could just describe now what Common Ground looks like now.
Looks like now.
Oh, we've been gone a week and a half, so who knows?
It may be.
We might be
We haven't gotten a lot of emails. We're a little concerned.
All right, a week ago.
A week
What did it
ago.
look like?
Right. Well, it's now we have spread out into 3 areas, and so I think you call them hubs, or we're learning.
Somebody
the language
said
here.
hubs. I don't know.
Someone
if
said
it's
hubs. So we have
3 sites.
3 different sites, and so that because we learned that the direct support workers kind of needed some place to go to get assistance and support. So we now have 3 places where the staff can drop by, and also it's accessible bathroom if there's not one available in the community for those that need personal care.
The people we serve are more easily able to check in with us because they were within their communities.
So we have 3 service coordinators at each of those 3 offices, and service coordinators now, supervise and kind of direct the day part of the person's life, whether it be employment or volunteering or relationship, kind of assisting people with relationships, and they kind of monitor the homes. And then we have kind of experts. We learned to keep experts in certain areas. So we have a couple housing coordinators that know all the rules regarding homes and how to set up homes, because they have to be certified by the state government. And then we have 2 nurses, because in our state we have to assist the people that administer medication to be trained to administer medication. So they do it for the homes and they do it for all of our staff. And then we have an employment person that makes sure that we are doing employment correctly, and kind of open employment, I think, so that we get as many people employed as possible. Right now it's around almost a half of our people are employed, and another half are either doing volunteering or employment. So we really emphasize that as a value, that having a full life means work, that people should be working if they can, and we try to find that match again for the right employment.
So what sort of jobs would people be taking up? Can you share some examples?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said.
Jobs. What
Different
kind of
jobs.
Yeah, there's
We have one person working in Mount Washington Hotel, a big hotel in our area. Another person's working at a I don't know what you call it, like a Kmart.
and doing the carts, all the carts. Very
Oh
proud
no,
of
there's
that.
another guy that does all kinds of things there. There's a guy
Right,
that does
there's
the
the
carts.
carts. But he's been doing that for like 12
12 years now, yeah.
And he's getting paid more than some of our direct support workers, which
Most of our direct support
Yeah.
workers.
they're a little jealous about. Working in supermarkets, and Burger King. There's a guy that's been working at a Burger King for a long
A couple
time.
of people working over at a small hotel out in Bethlehem.
Yeah. And a guy with autism, that when I first met him at age 12, the school had him in a separate house because they didn't know how to contain him. Because he would take off and run downtown to the railroad because he loved the train. And if you didn't let him, he'd hit himself. And now this guy has progressed, because we've known him since he was 12, and now he's working at a Littleton Coin Company. It's a place that sells kind of
Collector coins.
rare coins. And he's very good about detail, because his strength
It's a
became
mail order company.
a good match for the job. and it just radically changed his life, and he's not the same guy we met. So the jobs are all over the place too, because we're in a rural area.
Guy works at Honey Place.
Yeah, Honey Place, Maple Syrup
Maple
Place.
Syrup Place.
So there aren't any jobs that fit. Well, we don't send anyone to one particular job. We kind of find out what they're naturally gifted at, and then try to find that match, if possible. It's not always possible. And a lot of people that are, can't find work will volunteer, especially with the Meals on Wheels, a lot of delivery of meals. So it serves, and they feel, they're contributing, they're giving back.
We had one person who used to work in our sheltered workshop. This woman used to work in our sheltered workshop, and she was really good at collating paper and putting paper into envelopes and putting stamps on things, and she was really good at that. But as I said before, that work dried up in the sheltered workshop, and we've realized that supporting people within a sheltered environment is really detrimental to people's lives. So we shut that down, and we asked this woman, what kind of things do you want to do? Now the sky's the limit, you can do whatever. And she said, I don't know why I can't do what I was doing in the sheltered workshop. I was good at it, and now it's gone. So our employment guy said, you're right. And through a lot of hard work, she was able to get her own, she started her own business on Main Street in the town of Littleton, New Hampshire. She a viable business, and companies would contract with her to do that work, and it was her own business, and it was a successful business, and she was part of the local business association. She knew all the shopkeepers in town, and she in Littleton once every year or twice a year there was the sidewalk sale, so all of the businesses would sell their wares on the sidewalk, so people walk up and down Main Street, and she did the same with her business, and so she was a part of the Littleton community, and it was amazing to see. And she died, and not at work. But what sort of if you think about what kind of outcomes, what your support outcomes, what are your outcomes? Well, this outcome was in the funeral. It was the business owners. It was the people in Littleton that spoke about her. The local clergy spoke about her. The people with disabilities came and spoke about her, and people that knew her through her business world spoke about her. And it was a celebration of a business owner in Littleton. It was not about someone with a disability who received services from an agency. It was, and that was like, so that's sort of what the outcomes should be, and you see the state looks at our services, and they look at the paper, and they look at the charts, and making sure that all of the signatures are there.
Meeting their goals.
Yeah, are they achieving their goals? Well, the goal is, what was your life? And the life was, was a viable, contributing member of her community and there was a empty spot on Main Street after she died. Because she was a vital person. Right.
And when she was in the workshop, no one knew her.
She was just one of the people behind those walls. So.
Yeah. It's sad to have that be an outcome, but it really showed us, are we assisting people in the right way? And that was, kind of proof that it was.
It was neat. Mark officiated the funeral, and my daughters and I sang at the funeral, and other people spoke at the funeral, and it was a really amazing. It was, and I didn't think that was going to happen when we went to the funeral. I wondered, I didn't really think. And then I looked around and I went, this is a big shot in the town. This was one of the big people in town that people are celebrating here. And it was like, wow, that was.
And they just referred to her as Patty. It wasn't. It was nice.
Great story. So if you were going to give some, services, or a service that was thinking about, doing a transmission to more personalised supports, what would be some of the key things you'd advise them on, or key elements that you think are important for them?
Well, I always have one that I say is that if you're gonna be individualizing supports, don't try to don't try to hinder the chaos that will happen, because it will be chaotic. You know, that, and basically you should be embracing the chaos, because you're supporting all of these lives, and there's going to be inevitable chaos. And if you try to control it, you're controlling the people, because our services are supporting people. So if you're controlling the chaos, it's going to be controlling people, and it's going to be hindering the supports that could possibly help people blossom into and meet new people and becoming members of their community and citizens. So understand that there's going to be chaos, and don't try to hinder it. You have to control. You have to figure out a system that can manage it, not control. Don't control it. Manage the chaos. Don't control the chaos.
Spontaneity, I think someone told us.
Someone say, instead of saying chaos, call it spontaneity. But I think it's chaos. It's chaos because it's going to be. Because people change
their... They didn't like the word chaos.
They didn't like the word chaos. That's my word. I love chaos.
Okay.
Just look at my home.
And I would emphasize that the foundation before any change takes place is to have a strong value based. That any transformation before it does anything should have an agreement amongst themselves about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. And that it has to be to assist people that live a full life, and then build up from there. And then analyze their own system, and analyze the bigger system, and how can we get those structures in place to fulfill what we want to do as far as our values. And then they get all those people on your side. I mean, you need to have all these different stakeholders come alongside you, because it can't just be about a person wanting to do something. You do need to get the families and the people served and the governmental people, the people of power, and administration. All these people have to come along with you as part of the movement. So I think that's really important, that you get those people involved, because that's what we did, and it's really effective when everybody's together. But it takes a lot of work to get people to see it the same way. But it can be done. And it does tend to happen in pockets. It doesn't. It's hard to do in a large scale, and I think that's why you don't see it on a large scale, because I think people really want very medical-based outcomes, and to do this quality of life changes, it's really hard to kind of quantify, and it's difficult to measure the way you would a person in the hospital getting better. It's different. It's very different.
It's also, I mean, in advocating for dollars, in the governmental side, if they have data, they can state there's 17% more people do such and such. We need so much more money. But like I was saying, our outcomes are, what was a person's life? What was that? And it's not measurable. And so how can a politician or a government official say that person's life is better? And so they like to see hard data, so they can easily say, okay, 38% improvement will give 38% more money, and it's easy to state that within.
We invite government up.
Constantly invite those folks up, yeah. Constantly invite those folks up.
To remind them that it can be done, and it is a quality of life issue. And then also, if someone were to start it, I think they should have someone that's done it before come alongside them to help them, and to say, no, it's okay, you're going to get through this period, and it is going to be better. Because in the beginning there's some naysayers, and you really have to work through that stage of people not thinking it's going to work. And then they'll see the outcome eventually, but you got to get through it. And having someone, in your corner to speak to those people that don't see it the same way as you do, I think is important. Organizations have called us that are going through it, and we've gone and visited with different organizations to speak to families, to say, no, this happened, and this is going to be the outcome eventually. And that's effective, because it's hard other than just telling stories.
Well, I think you have to have values that are clearly articulated, and then everyone knows the values, and everybody knows them deep down, because and so then your decisions are based upon that deep down value base, because you know you're out there and like I said, just going to be managing all the chaos that happens. And I tell my staff that, you know, don't worry about making a mistake as long as I see that your decision was based on our core values. So you're shooting for this and you made this decision and it didn't work. Don't worry about it. You were still shooting for the right thing. But if I see someone making a decision that's totally against of what our values are, that's a problem. So you know you had to. Everyone needs to know the values and the mission and the truth deep down, and then you work together and it's going to be fine.
And you do need a strong leader to keep it going.
Well, that's to be able to state those values clearly and articulately, and everyone believes that. And
Michael Kendrick talks about that a lot, is the leadership, and to be an effective leader, you have to have followers, and so you make sure you build in that support behind you.
So when you talk about your values, what values are you talking about? What are some examples of the values?
about what our values are.
Yeah.
Our values that every human being deserves and has the fundamental right to be a part of their communities, be a contributing member to their communities, and that that each person has the fundamental right to be respected and to have a say in what their life is going to be. Whether you can articulate that verbally or whether you can't articulate that verbally, everybody has a right to have a say in and have a direction and choose that direction for their life that's important to them, and then we are supposed to support that life. And
that life doesn't mean that it's going to be a life of just taking care of that life. That life is going to be like ours, that there'll be opportunities to make mistakes and fail and lose their jobs, and like us, and that's how we learn, and that's how people learn. So.
Yeah, everybody has the right to live a full life. Everybody needs to feel that someone cares about them. Everybody has the fundamental right to be a part of their communities. And we also say that, as a professional, you need to understand that how you're treating the person you're supporting directly impacts on how the community treats the person you're supporting. Because the community at large will be looking at, what is this? And if a person's not respected, the community is going to be less apt to respect that person that's not being respected by a so-called professional. So, that's the kind of understanding of our role as a professional. But, really, how would we want to be treated how would we want to be supported?
Yeah, we build programs around people. We don't place people into programs. So it's all very simple when you think about it. It's just...
No, it is simple.
Yeah.
So if it's simple, why aren't more people doing it?
Right. Well, the United States anyway, I think professionals like us 50, 60 years ago said, your loved one has a disability. The best thing for your loved one is to be in this institutional setting. This person really doesn't have the capacity to be a part of the community. And this is us talking 50, 60 years ago. So people believed us. And so there were these big institutions, and the community at large
we've lost our credibility.
Suffered. Yeah, this community at large suffered because all of humanity wasn't part of the community. There was a percentage that was separated from. And now people like us are saying, let's be a part. And some people are saying, wait, that doesn't fit right, because wasn't it you 50 years ago that said you're supposed to be separate from? And now, still the residual effects of that grouping and of that institutional setting is that it's more cost effective. You need professionals. People with disabilities need professionals. How are we going to hire a lot of professionals? Maybe if we group a bunch of people together and you have a few professionals, there's still that mentality that it takes a professional, which is wrong.
Yeah, I am surprised, though, that it is the way it is still. 19 years ago, when we started Common Ground, I thought by now, certainly by now, that it would be widespread. So I am kind of shocked that 19 years later we're still talking about this, because it should be commonplace. It shouldn't be like it is now. I am still, I just can't believe it. When we go and speak in areas and this very large, congregated, segregated grouping, I can't believe it. Because it just makes it's just common sense to serve people in a very individualized way.
It's common sense for us, but I think people still have the fallacy that these folks are vulnerable and need to be protected.
I know.
And then they need professionals to be able to take care of the symptoms or the behaviors, and don't understand that behaviors are.
But I just thought the stories, coming from agencies that have supported people in a very personalized, individualized way, would get around,
right,
and that change would happen on a larger scale. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I am, kind of surprised that.
I have to say that the communities that we work in, are very. It's very open
like
and
our staff don't know anything else.
They don't know anything else.
So when we tell stories of other places, they go, "What? That doesn't make any sense."
So they're shocked, yeah, and and hear stories of community members not wanting people to be a part. Our staff are like, "What?" Because they don't find that where we are, because people are out and about, and they're part of their community. So,
and it does say something about the people we serve are devalued, because they're still stuck in institutions in the United States, throughout the country. All those should be shut down by now. It just doesn't make sense. If it was a different group of people, other than people that cannot vote in many of our states,
I think that's a lot of it too.
if they could vote, I think things would change.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people we serve are unable to vote.
Or if they do vote, if they don't vote in a unified block, they don't vote all one way. If people with disabilities were together, and we try to get self-advocacy groups and groups together to make some political change, but they don't tend to vote one way. Because if they did all vote one way, our politicians in America would listen to that vote, that huge vote, and respond.
Yeah. Because then they'd be more valued.
But people vote individually as how they feel, like they should. They don't vote in.
Because there's no way they should be stuck in some of the environments they're stuck in still.
Yeah.
So going back to the point made about vulnerability.
Excuse me there.
Yep.
I better just change the tape.
Okay. How are we going for time?
Good done now.
Well,